All right, good evening and welcome to this candidate forum hosted by the Johnson County Post. This is for candidates running for two at-large seats on the Gardner City Council. We'll give the candidates a chance to introduce themselves shortly. But first, I will shorten this introduction a little bit, but still say my name's Kyle Palmer. I'm the editor of the Johnson County Post. Still some very excited school board folks out in the the atrium there talking, so we'll get them to quiet down a little bit. But we do appreciate the candidates for Gardner City Council being here tonight. There are 5 of you on the ballot. All 5 of you are here. And again, this is for 2 at-large seats. So the Post has been doing this for nearly 15 years since we started as the Prairie Village Post, and so we're glad that finally be down in Gardner doing both school board and city council elections tonight. If you're not a subscriber, try us out, johnsoncountypost.com. You can go there and get a $1 1-month trial offer. You can cancel anytime after that, but you can check us out, and we think we would be worth paying full price if you do eventually go down that route. A big thanks to the Gardner Edgerton School District for allowing us the auditorium in Trail Ridge Middle School here tonight for this event. We're also live streaming this event as we're doing for all 12 nights of forums this fall. And so if you are ducking out of this forum early, either in person or online, you can go back and watch the full event at any point between now and November 4th. It'll be on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. And I also want to thank the candidates who are here tonight. Full participation for this race. It's good to see you out here. Running for office can be time intensive, labor intensive, and time consuming. And so we really do appreciate you taking about 45 minutes to an hour of your time this evening on a Wednesday night to share your views with the viewers and readers and voters in the auditorium tonight. Format for this forum, so again, this is for 2 at-large Gardner City Council seats. Each candidate will get a opening statement, 60 seconds. I have a series of prepared questions here that you will all answer. You'll answer the same questions. You'll get the same amount of time to respond. If there is the need for a rebuttal, if a candidate mentions another candidate by name, and there's that opportunity to give another candidate a rebuttal, I might do that for up to 30 seconds. And then we may also end with closing statements, though we've also learned that it's best just to go and answer all the issue questions and kind of curtail before we get to closing statements. I will also note, you might have heard it, we are having some issues with our speaker, so if that does happen, it's a really quick fix. We turn it off and on. It fixes itself, but it might kind of interrupt. So I apologize if that happens ahead of time, but please know that the live stream feed is not compromised in any way. It's just kind of an annoyance in the room, but we will fix it if that happens. That being said, let's jump right in. We're running a little bit late, and so I know it's already 7:17. I want to give you a full forum, so let's start with opening statements, and the lot fell to Mark Baldwin to start, so we'll just go left to right down the row. And so 60 seconds each for all of you, and we'll start with Mark.
Hi, my wife and I moved here in 2003 and started our family here. I'm a member of Divine Mercy Parish. I was a treasurer for the Knights of Columbus for 15 years, founding member of our Knights 4th Degree Order, served on the Finance Council, usher, and I helped create the security committee there. I'm a treasurer for Trail Life. I coach basketball through Gardner Parks and Rec and flag football for KCFC and NFL Flag. I'm a Lego robotics mentor and a math counts coach. I served on the EOB for 7 years. It's now the UAC, and the last 3 as chairman. I was elected to City Council in 2017, so I've served since 2018, Vice President in 2021, and I've been City Council President since 2022, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 4th.
We'll move the microphone now to Kelly Johnson. If you want to go ahead and move that microphone closer to you if you want, don't be shy, and give yourself an opening statement, Kelly.
Okay. Hello, thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Kelly Johnson, and I have lived in Johnson County for 30 of the past 40 years, in Gardner for the past 6. We moved here as renters of a house near Sunflower Elementary, and then last summer we're able to purchase our house, so we're now homeowners here. We love Gardner. We've been putting down our roots. We're members at Divine Mercy. We've been heavily involved in scouting. We love Gardner, and we plan to be here for the long term. I'm married to Scott, and I'm a mom, sometimes bruh, to the coolest 12-year-old I know. Like I said, we are parishioners at Divine Mercy, involved in scouting. We're all over Gardner, and I am most familiar, I think, with the moms in the area. My day job is as a paralegal. I've worked in both law firm and corporate environments, supporting attorneys in the areas of education, employment, insurance subrogation, contracts, and healthcare. My current role is corporate and focused on regulatory filings with the SEC.
Thank you very much. And here I thought bruh was my unique nickname. Dawn Kirtley, we'll give the microphone to you, give you a chance to give an opening statement. Dawn Kirtley.
Hi, my name's Dawn Kirtley. I actually grew up in Pomona, which is about 40 minutes from here. So I've been a lifelong Kansan. And my husband and I moved here 12 years ago, on purpose, we picked Gardner specifically when we got together. So we have 2 kids in the school district. I am a PTO treasurer, and I'm also part of Gardner Pride. I'm on the board there, so I'm heavily involved in our community. And yeah, that's it.
You're not obligated to fill out your time if you don't want to.
Okay.
Steve, shoot, give you the microphone to you to give you a chance for an opening statement.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate the introduction and also the participation of John. It's now the Johnson County Post. And appreciate the shout out for our community, our area. My name is Steve Shute. I have been involved with Gardner politics since 2013. I came in on the council in 2013 and have been serving for the last 13 years. 12 years, I should say, not 13. Man, time flies. Was council president from 2015 to 2017. I was mayor of the city of Gardner from 2017 to 2021. And so that's basically my amount of civic service. I'm an information technology professional by day. I'm a technology solutions principal working primarily in back-end office system management for healthcare companies. So if you have any questions about healthcare, please don't ask me. And then I also am a Kansas resident since 2005. I'm married to my wife, Kathy, of 34 years plus, almost 35. In August of next year will be 35th anniversary. And I have 5 boys. 3 of them are still living at home. Thank you.
And the final opening statement, we'll give the microphone to John.
Good evening. I'm John Snyder, and I moved to Gardner after retiring from the Army in 2008 and began work for the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. I spent a short time there, went up to Wyandotte County and became the Deputy Jail Administrator. Then I went back to the Department of the Army and worked there as a Department of the Army civilian for the next nearly 15 years, and I retired in 2023 as the Deputy Commandant, United States Disciplinary Barracks. I am married to my beautiful wife, Rachel, of 37 years. I have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren, and I love the Gardner community. Thank you.
And for the audience members, if you have a question that you want to ask, you might see index cards around your seat. You can find Leah Wacom, flag her down. She'll be circulating around the room. You can give that to her. She'll give it to me. I already have one question up here, but I also have some prepared questions as well. But if you have something you want to ask, give it to Leah and she'll give it to me. The order falls to Kelly Johnson to do our first question after opening statements. It's a question I've been starting many forums with. It is, what do you see as the next big challenge for Gardner over the next 4 years? If elected, how would you approach it? And this is the only question. You'll get 90 seconds to respond, to kind of expound maybe on your campaign vision. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Gardner? Kelly Johnson.
Okay. I think the biggest challenge is facing Gardner right now is how quickly we're growing. We are, as Keith said during the school board forum, Gardner is the fastest growing city in Johnson County and is in the top 5 in growth in Kansas. And with that growth comes a whole lot of stuff that needs to get done, from infrastructure to what they were talking about with the school district, to moving Gardner from being a second-class city to a city of the first class in Kansas, which will involve kind of revamping our municipal governmental structure. So we have a lot on our plate moving forward in the next couple, probably say the next decade, with building new developments, bringing in businesses, just trying to make sure that all of our infrastructure is not only up to what we need now, but is looking forward to the future, what we're going to need 3 and 4 decades from now, because we definitely don't want to get it done and then have to come back and redo it. So I think the speed of growth in Gardner is our biggest challenge.
And the microphone to Dawn Kirtley. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Gardner over the next 4 years or the coming years, and how would you address it if elected?
I think, honestly, it's the transparency between citizens and the city they live in. I think there's a lot going on, and not a lot of people know what's going on. So I think just to focus on that and to let them be a part of the conversation, and just to keep everyone informed on, like, the housing coming in and the new businesses, and just everything that's happening, the rock quarry, like just everything that is going on. People should know about it. So
Steve Shu, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Gardner over the next 4 years? How would you address it?
Well, obviously, I think the biggest challenge that we have as a community is trying to stay ahead of the growth, especially within the areas of not only infrastructure above ground, which would be basically your road systems and all of those things, overhead lines for power and things like that, but we also need to look at what's under the ground. Now, what I would like to say is that we've really worked hard to get ahead of that. We've done expansions, massive expansions to both our water plant, and we're in the middle of a wastewater treatment plant expansion that's going to more than double our capacity there. So from that perspective, yes, absolutely, I think that we've got a good start on that. We also have to work with our state and county partners. So that's why we hired a grant writer back when I was, just before I became mayor, back in 2018. We brought in a great grant writer for the city, and we've also, and we'll talk about transparency, we're probably the most transparent government in all of Johnson County, and it's not even close. Within our council meetings, we have public comment periods that happen not only at the beginning of the meeting, but also for every single agenda item. As many people as possible who want to come up to talk and speak their voice are able to do so, and we listen. We don't try to interject. We don't try to interrupt. We don't try to belittle those people. We let them speak, and they have up to 5 minutes to speak, each individual. I'm sorry, you can't find that anywhere in any government in any part of this state. So from that perspective, we are the most transparent government in Johnson County, as well as probably the state of Kansas. What I would like to say is that we can be better in terms of proactive communication. We have a great PIO. Danica March-Lakendo is awesome. And we are continuing to work on that. We just modernized our website as well.
Yeah, I don't want to get into an extended back and forth, but since the issue was transparency, and that was Don Kirtley's issue, I just maybe give you a chance to respond directly to what Steve said, or thinking about, because you said that was a challenge or an obstacle for you that you see the city, whereas Steve says that it is the most transparent government in Johnson County or Kansas. So what would you respond to that, and what are particular concerns of transparency might you have?
Well, obviously, yes, if you go to the meetings, you can find out what's happening, but there are a lot of people who don't go. So that would be something like doing social media posts, or even having like town halls, just something more, I guess, so that people know that you're at least trying to listen to them and take into account their opinions. And then also the businesses in town.
Finish the thought, yeah.
The businesses in town do not feel heard, from what I've heard from business owners in town. So there's another.
We'll keep going down the line. John Snyder, the biggest challenge or need you see facing Gardner over the next few years, how would you tackle it if elected?
Well, I think the biggest challenge facing Gardner right now is pretty obvious. It is the growth, and how we manage that growth is really the biggest challenge. We have to pay for it somehow. The infrastructure, we have to provide enough housing. And I said this before at the other forum, if you go on Indeed, there's about 2,000 jobs in this area, and the traffic is a concern. And one of the things that we got to do is we got to make sure that we're proactive in managing the growth, and the growth isn't trying to manage us. We got to be a self-contained city. We're going to have to bring in more corporations to generate more revenue to help pay for some of the infrastructure. And I think that's our biggest challenge, is really how are we going to pay for it? There's really only two ways to pay for it, and that's to get more corporations to come in or to raise taxes. And I'm not a fan of raising taxes.
And coming down here to the other end, Mark Baldwin, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Gardner, and how would you address it?
So, broken record, managing growth. The fact that we're the fastest growing city in the metro area, fifth in the state, is a testament to what we've done to correct the stigma that we had after the intermodal debacle. Essentially, we gave the message to residential developers, commercial developers, that we don't want you here and that we won't work with you. We've revamped the land development code. We are constantly working with developers to try to find a win-win scenario on their developments so that we can bring in those tax dollars that we need so heavily. We also have always had a problem with not having enough Tier 2 housing. So as we secure our southern border annexation area, that will allow more room for Tier 2 housing. We had a lack of apartments and multifamily. We've pretty much resolved a lot of that in the last 8 years. Tried to spread what our demographics can look like. Overall, our utilities are growing, and we're continuing to expand them as necessary, judiciously. And at the same time, we're trying to keep our expenses low. We do a conservative zero-based budget. We're trying to keep all of the needs and wants that residents want balanced with the benefits of it and also the cost, and at the same time trying to listen to the residents as to what they don't want. So you've got to do both. We're going in the right direction, and we have to keep going that way. We have to keep bringing in those tax dollars, though, to keep our taxes in check.
Thank you for responding to that question. The order falls to Don Kirtley for this next one. You mentioned, just actually a good segue from Mark's final comments, as you face difficult decisions about what city services to fund and how much to spend in coming years. What city services will you want to protect most? And on the other hand, are there aspects of city spending or the budget that you would want to see trimmed? So that's a two-part question. What do you want to protect the most in city spending, and is there any areas to cut or trim? And this is 60 seconds. We'll start with Don Kirtley.
I think safety would probably be the most important in terms of, well, and then also like Parks and Rec, as far as like, I would say like sidewalks and roads is another thing that would need protected. And then as far as the budget, that is, I am an accountant, so that is kind of my bread and butter. And I would love to spend more time going and even speaking with the accountants there in the city that do that job, that just to understand how they do their job. And yeah, just, so I wouldn't, for now, I would leave it as is, just because I don't know.
Steve Shute, budget priorities. What would you want to protect in the city's budget? What are some areas of city spending that might be open to trimming, if you see any?
Well, we've had a real good cooperation with our local citizenry with regard to the most important aspects. So I've always thought of, public safety, public works, and utilities are the three biggest aspects of any governmental funding mechanism. So public safety, we had a $14 million bond issue that was approved by taxpayers for a new justice center. This was back in 2017. We got that on the books in 2019. We have also had a 20% increase in our medium police compensation, which has allowed us to be competitive with the county and with other jurisdictions around us to be able to bring in quality law enforcement personnel and staff. And from the standpoint of infrastructure, obviously, we've, as I said, we made aforementioned investments in both the water and wastewater plants to keep those working at high capacity. We're also adding a new electrical substation as part of that budget initiative, and that's being paid for with fees from ratepayers. And we are going to be, the biggest one that we've got now is the public works side of things. So sidewalks, roads, and also cooperation with KDOT and other entities.
John Snyder, budget priorities for you. Do you see areas that are priorities to protect for you that you wouldn't want to cut, and areas that might be open to trimming?
Obviously, anyone that has to deal with safety, emergency operations, infrastructure are the ones that we want to keep. But I look through the budget, and I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of fat in the budget right now. In fact, I think due to the growth, there's probably going to be some expansion necessary. And I think the challenge for Gardner is how to pay for that, because obviously as the citizens grow, and they're growing at about 1,000 residents per year, the challenge is how are you going to tackle paying for that? And again, I said that there's only 2 ways to do it, but there's actually 3, because they did implement the 3rd way, which is to do a backdoor tax by raising the water and the sewage nearly 5% over the next 6 years. I don't necessarily agree with doing that. I think we got to think outside the box, and we got to get more aggressive in getting corporations in here and having people of Gardner staying in Gardner and spending their tax dollars in Gardner.
Mark Baldwin, the question to you, budget priorities. What are the areas of the budget that you want to protect most? Are there any areas that you could see trimming?
Protect has to be the core need of government anyway, which in this case would be roads and police. Hard infrastructure, roads, we have to keep working with KDOT. We have to open up all of those bridges to get to our southern half of the city. We have to keep managing all the roads that we have within the city so that everyone can get somewhere and not have a bunch of potholes. Police, as a soft infrastructure, we have to keep staying competitive. We raised rates, wages. We have brought in more employees, but that has to continue to be fully funded so that it can grow as we grow as the city. So ideally, the southern half, go across I-35, we will double this city in the next 25 years. And if that's the case, you're going to have to stay with that. So there's that increased cost. Trimming-wise, we're pretty lean now. I'm willing to look at anything at any time, but if push comes to shove, you might have to cut something that is more of a want than a need.
Kelly Johnson, wrapping up this question, budget priorities to you, what's there to protect and what's there that could possibly be trimmed?
Well, in the face of rising costs, which is the way of the world today, I think it's crucial to protect the core city services that directly affect the quality of life and public safety for all of our residents. Those include public safety, clean water, utilities, road and sidewalk maintenance, and caring for our parks and our trails. These are all foundational services, and they're essential for the day-to-day well-being of our residents, and they can't be compromised without significant consequences. At the same time, I do know that we need to be fiscally responsible. So areas where I would consider trimming or seeking better efficiencies could be like non-essential administrative expenses, if we have any duplicative programs, or expensive initiatives maybe that cater to a smaller group within the community as opposed to the broader community. Not having been on city council to date, I'm not privy to all of the budgetary discussions.
Finish the thought, please. Yeah, don't.
So that would be something that I would definitely want to look into more once I'm on the city council.
The timer is more of a guideline, not a requirement. You can continue to finish your thought even after it rings. We won't cut the microphone. The order falls to Steve Shute next, and so this also kind of comes hand in hand with talking about budgets. That is property taxes. We get frequently hear from readers urging cities to consider tax rate cuts or other relief to counteract the impacts of rising valuations in Johnson County. Cities are limited in what they can do. That doesn't make up nearly the most of your annual property tax bill in Johnson County, but still we hear this question a lot about what the cities can do and really want to hear candidates' stances on property taxes. So just for context here, the 2026 budget for Gardner is going to have an 18 mil property tax rate. That's flat year over year.
Right, yep.
Is your city's current tax rate appropriate for the city's needs? Would you see it voting for cutting it any further, even down to the state-defined revenue neutral rate?
Well, first of all, the revenue neutral rate is a pipe dream because you have rising costs every single year. You have inflation costs, you have personnel costs. Those are sunk costs. You can't really do anything about that. If you want to keep your people, you're going to have to keep you're going to have to be competitive with the marketplace. If other municipalities are increasing their salaries for their employees, you better be doing the same or you're going to lose your people. So the revenue neutral rate has never been, and by the way, the revenue neutral rate from the standpoint of how the state defines it is absolutely ridiculous because it doesn't take into account new development. It doesn't take into account evaluations per capita, which I think is a much better measure. Having said that, Gardner has the second lowest mill levy in the entire Johnson County metro area. The only one that's lower than us is Overland Park, and they have a much larger commercial tax base. So from that perspective, I think we've done a really good job of keeping that under control. Having said all that, I voted against this last budget because I felt that we could have brought mill levies down at a quarter point, and we didn't do that, and I regret that, but I'm going to look for ways to continue to keep that mill levy low.
John Snyder, you brought up taxes in one of your opening questions. So how do you see taxes? How do you approach voting for the mill rate every year if elected?
Well, the mill levy, we're somewhere in the middle. Olathe is about 24%, Overland Park is 14%, and Gardner is 18%, roughly.
And saying percent, you mean mills?
Mill rate.
Yeah.
Mill rate. And Steve Shute hit the nail on the head. Overland Park has more commercial businesses that contribute to the revenue, so they can offer a lower mill rate. Now, I sat through some Gardner Council meetings where they were talking about operating in the red over the next 5 years, and you can go back and review those. And Gardner, the city, what the government's not telling you is they're in real trouble, because it goes back to what I said. With the growth, they're going to have to come up with some revenue, and really the only way to do that is to get some more commercial businesses. Now, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go out and talk to Overland Park and ask them how they did it. But I'm not in favor of raising the mill rate, and I'm not in favor of the property taxes. That's more Johnson County evaluations than it is Gardner.
Coming back to this end of the table, Mark Baldwin, the city's property tax rate. How do you approach voting on that when you're on the council?
So while I've been on council, I pushed for, we voted for, and we accomplished lowering the mill rate by over 2.5 mils. That's why, all while we built the Justice Center, we added the police officers, we gave them the pay raises, we dealt with COVID, we absorbed losing our health insurance and having to deal with that debacle. Our property and liability insurance has more than doubled. I want taxes to be as low as possible, hence the cut, but we also have to have utility bills be reasonable, which we've done a great job of. The electric funds essentially overcharged between having hot summers and conservative budgeting, so I advocated for the PCA to be reduced or eliminated. Right now it's paused. Hopefully one day it'll be permanently removed. We have rates cheaper than Evergy. We're spreading out the utility costs for the improvements on wastewater and water over 10 years. All of our developments will be rolling onto the tax rolls in the next 10 years. We essentially have to stay the course right now and let the development money finally come back in so that we can actually have more of those funds to do what we need to with it.
And Kelly Johnson, your approach to property taxes, you'd be voting on the annual property tax rate if you're elected. So how would you approach that? What would you be thinking of?
Sure. I think when you first started this question, you asked about the tax rate compared to the services that Gardner provides.
Is it is it appropriate for
at that
what
level?
the city provides? Yeah.
Yeah, and I do believe that Gardner provides great services. Our police department, the aquatic center, parks and playgrounds, snow removal, all of those things are paid with those property tax dollars that come in. And I do believe that that the services that Gardner provides are really excellent services. They're the kind of things that make people and companies want to come to Gardner, and they cause families to stay here for the long term. So I think that the payoff is good for that. That said, I know that personal property tax feels really high. I'm a homeowner too, and I know what it feels like to go to the mailbox and see that appraisal notice and go, oh, yay, my house is worth more. Yay, my house is worth more, because I'm going to have to pay more taxes for it. So, what I can do is I can say I can stick to a budget, and that as much as possible, I will work to keep the mill levy as low as possible. That may be keeping it at the same, it may be lowering it sometime. It's just looking every year to see where we are and what we need to do, and to make it as low as possible.
And rounding out this question, Dawn Kirtley, is the city's current tax rate appropriate to you? Do Gardner residents essentially get a good bang for their dollar? What do you say on the property tax rate, and how would you approach it if elected?
I think the mill levy currently is appropriate. They didn't move it up or down, and that was according to the budget. They were able to keep it the same, which I thought was great. I would, as far as going forward, if I would just have to, what was the last part of the question?
I mean, how would you approach it if you're going to be faced with these votes of what rate to set it at? What would be your philosophy as you're thinking about voting for this every year?
I would have to have the entire council's help. Like, I wouldn't be able to just, I don't know, do that on my own. So I guess leave it up to the experts, and then we decide.
Next question that starts with John Snyder down at the end. That's the order. If you move the microphone close to you. Gardner, many of you mentioned it's growing. It's one of the fastest growing communities in Johnson County. Part of that is housing. So Gardner has greenlit a number of major housing developments in recent months. A new nearly 250 home subdivision on the city's western periphery, another 250 home residential project east of I-35. The need for affordable housing is one of the things we hear most about from readers across Johnson County, of course, not just in Gardner. What policies would you like your city to pursue to make housing in your city potentially more affordable? Is this a priority for you? John Snyder, we'll start with you.
That's a good question. I came to Gardner because it was affordable. I recently relocated my mother here in Gardner, and I realized that it's not as affordable as it once was. And it could be maybe there's not as much, well, there isn't as many available housing. It has to do with interest rates. But I think we have to make sure that we have enough housing available and that we can keep the market down, and a diversity of housing as well. Those jobs I talked about on Indeed, most of them are $20 an hour jobs, so we need to make sure that we can accommodate that, because that does other things too. It keeps the roads, people off the highways, keeps it safer, but we also have to keep our commercial and our infrastructure up with the growth, and we have to manage those three things in order. If we overflow Gardner with housing, we just don't have the infrastructure. So we're gonna, it's up to the Gardner government to make sure that they manage all of that together.
Mark Baldwin, the question to you: what policies would you like your city to pursue or prioritize as you think about making housing or keeping housing as affordable as it can be in Gardner?
So first thing to get out there is that the government doesn't control the housing. We don't set the prices. We don't dictate that we're going to have X amount of this or this, other than what we approve from a perspective of, hey, a developer wants to put in X, and we think it's a good idea because we need more apartments. We need more of this style housing. We've done a very good job over the last 8 years of diversifying what our housing stock is, if you will. We've been real responsive to the developers and trying to meet with them with variances and deviations to address their market concerns. Land is expensive, it's tough to develop it. They need certain concessions at times, so we do some horse trading to make that work. Overall, we're plugged in with the county and Olathe with different meetings that our development director goes to stay apprised of what's coming down the pipe. But in general, housing is going to always be a need here as we continue to grow, and I think we're doing a good job of it.
Kelly Johnson, the idea of housing, how would you approach it? What do you, policies, priorities do you want to see the city put in place to make sure that housing can remain as affordable as it can be here?
Sure. Housing affordability is a top priority, and I believe that Gardner needs to take an active role in addressing it. While many market forces are, like Mark said, outside of our control, there are strategies that we can put in place and implement locally that will help. To that end, I would advocate for modernizing our zoning codes to allow for even greater housing diversity than we have, by permitting duplexes, triplexes, accessory dwelling units, apartment buildings, maybe even tiny homes. You can expand the housing supply and provide options for residents at different income levels and life stages. I also think it should be a priority to collaborate with regional partners and to seek state and federal support. But as a city, we need to lead by example. We need to ensure that our policies promote equitable access to housing while preserving the character of our neighborhoods. That's essential for a thriving, inclusive community. And for me, making housing more affordable isn't just a policy goal. It's a commitment to the well-being and future of all of our residents.
Don Curley, what policies do you want to see Gardner pursue or prioritize to make housing remain or stay potentially more affordable? Is this a priority for you?
Yeah, it's a priority. That's why we picked Gardner in the first place, because we were living in Lenox at the time, and that just wasn't feasible. But I would say, like what Kelly said, more diverse housing, updating the zoning codes for the apartments and the townhomes, maybe encouraging redevelopment. I know we have a lot of like commercial or just buildings that could be used for something else, and to promote public and private partnerships also, I think, would help.
And Steve Shute, round out this question. What do you see as Gardner's approach to making sure, or at least trying to ensure, that housing remains as affordable as possible in this city?
There's 2 points that need to be addressed, obviously, when it comes to attainable. I like the word attainable housing instead of affordable housing, because, to be honest with you, anywhere in Johnson County, I would not consider to be necessarily affordable to a person making $20 an hour. That's just the way it is, unfortunately, because of the fact that, 1, we've got high interest rates, 2, it's becoming extremely expensive for developers, particularly residential developers, to build a house. I've talked to developers, and what they tell me is that, $300,000 is their price point when it comes to trying to turn a profit on houses in this community. So there's a problem there. And what we've done over the last 15 years while I've been on council is that we've been working very hard to bring in apartment buildings and other types of higher density residential. Gardner did not have very many apartments before 10 years ago. We've made some significant strides in that area. We need to have diversified housing stock in every single price point and every single classification, from the upper end all the way down to the lower end. And we also need to think actually about how we're going to be able to support those individuals that are not can't afford to come in and buy a house right away. We've made changes to our land development code to be able to bring in tiny homes and other types of development. That's already been done, and we did that in 2018, so.
The order falls to Mark Baldwin. This is still another question about housing. Mentioning apartments, the city earlier this year condemned the Aspen Place apartments near New Century Air Center. After years of growing neglect and tenant issues at the complex, many displaced residents agreed the complex was run down, but some of them did criticize the city's approach to condemning the property and giving residents roughly 48 hours to evacuate with little warning beforehand, though it was a very unique circumstance. Did the city learn anything moving forward? Could it avoid such a situation again? Is there any future for the Aspen Place complex that the city can be involved in the future? We'll start with Mark Baldwin.
Future, we don't know. My guess is that the company will go bankrupt and it will sit there and eventually we'll have to force it to be demolished. The whole situation was a travesty because the owner and the management company did not take care of the residents. That's the lock stock of it. The roads, the infrastructure were not city owned, so we couldn't maintain them. For a year and a half before the condemnation, there had been codes enforcement going out there dealing with issues for the residents. The problem is that they go through the process, they get it up to snuff just enough, and then it goes back. So eventually, after we proved that there was raw sewage being pumped out and so forth, then there was more pressure on them. When the fire truck fell through, a Johnson County fire truck, not Gardner, we don't have one, they were already on Plan B for their fire protection. They didn't have working fire hydrants. So when that happened, now there was zero fire protection. So the 48 hours I thought was was tough, but it was necessary because if we had extended it and someone died or there was a fire, it would have been even worse of a travesty. And I definitely wouldn't support that.
Yeah, and just a follow-up question. So, very unique circumstance. Did the city learn anything from that in terms of dealing with other property owners, other apartments that are now coming online? Certainly not in the condition that Aspen Place was, but anything that the city learned?
So we learned that we're going to have to be very tight on regulations, that we're going to have to potentially look at inspecting more often, but there's limitations on what we can and can't do. We discussed that in a meeting, and we're looking for more opportunities for ways to guard against those type of things, but there isn't anything immediately that we're changing.
Kelly Johnson, what can the city do moving forward to avoid situations like the Aspen Place debacle again? Of course, acknowledging that was a very unique set of circumstances.
I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage for this question because I wasn't on the city council, so I don't know exactly what the city council may have done ahead of time, or the city administrators. I do know what I've read in the papers, what I've heard on the news, in that, like Mark was saying, that there was code enforcement, but that it would just barely get up to snuff and then it would fall back down again. So I think really the takeaway for me is that I believe that the city council, as far as we can, needs to communicate better. I think maybe this may have not been quite as big a debacle if there had been better communication. I think people felt like, to some extent, it kind of fell out of the sky and hit them on the head and they didn't know what to do. But if the city council, the city administrators are having open communication, if they're setting up meetings with the residents and the owners and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to be a middleman here to get you guys communicating with each other, and we all need to be on board with what needs to happen so that everybody's on the same page. I think that just that communication would go a long way.
And Don Curley, the caveat remains to you too as well, that you weren't on the city council when the decisions were made, but do you see the city being able to avoid such situations in the future, even if they're not as drastic as Aspen Place?
I think as long as the city is partnering with good developers and good the apartment building owners and managers and whatnot, and they're all with keeping up to code and doing their job, then the city council can, kind of back out of that. But I would say just to work with good partners.
Steve Shute, you were on the city council. You are on the city council when that decision was made. What can the city do moving forward to avoid such situations again? Do you think the city did what it could in this very unique, drastic situation?
At the risk of going over my time, I'm going to give a little bit of a history lesson here. Aspen Place was actually created as base housing for Naval Air Station Olathe back in 1960. Those particular buildings were base housing. Again, they were done contractor grade, military, for military housing. They weren't the greatest buildings to begin with. When they got released back, when the Naval Air Station closed, they ended up in the city of Gardner. However, they were all private roads, and so we could not maintain the roads. Their electric service is done by Evergy. Their water service is done by Johnson County. Their wastewater service is done by Johnson County. If we had any of those levers like we have with every other development in Gardner, in the city of Gardner, we would have been able to leverage those levers like water, wastewater. We could have shut off their power. We could have shut off their water and said, hey, you cannot have anything else happening on this property until you fix these issues. And obviously, we would have much more proactive communication with the residents because we would have controlled those utilities. We did not control anything in Aspen Place, so it put us at a disadvantage. And we did everything we possibly could, and I don't apologize at all for how that went down. We had to get those people out of there. It was a public safety issue.
And John Snyder, wrapping up this question about Aspen Place, the way the city handled it, do you think anything could be learned from that to avoid such situations again, acknowledging that this was a unique situation?
Well, I lived all over the country, and I believe that may be one of the greatest housing debacles I've ever witnessed. Whatever led up to it, there had to be some lessons learned that came out of it. And, and none of them were mentioned here, but I think some town halls would have been warranted. Although they had no control over the other than the enforcement of the codes, they could have provided information. Hey, here's what is about to happen. I went over and talked to the residents after it happened, and it was very emotional because 48 hours to move all your belongings out of a house, in a moment's notice, that's a difficult thing for anybody. So my heart goes out to all the people over there. And why were they living in substandard housing? Probably because there's nowhere else affordable for them to live. So those are probably some lessons learned that that could come out of it. Communication and affordable housing.
The order falls to Kelly Johnson for this next question from the audience, written on an index card. This person notes all city council seats are at large, so these are 5 people running for 2 at-large seats. This person asks, do you have any thoughts on changing to a district election method, meaning like you see in some other cities in Johnson County where they are elected by a ward? I'm not sure what it would take to do that, if that's even possible, but this is what someone is asking. So would you prefer to see that, Kelly Johnson?
I think I'm not 100%. It's part of what I've been looking at, and I don't have all the details worked out yet, but I think that ultimately that is where Gardner is moving. We have different classes of city in Gardner, and right now Gardner is, or not in Gardner, in Kansas, and right now Gardner is considered a second-class city. Once you reach 15,000 residents, you can start moving to being a first-class city. Once you reach 25,000, Kansas statute says you have to start moving to being a first-class city.
In second class, that is a technical language. You're not down
No,
talking Gardner.
no, I'm not.
It is
I'm
legal
not
language.
trashing Gardner. It's the way that it's defined in the
Yeah,
statutes. But part of being a first-class city involves revamping our municipal government, and I believe that part of that is switching to a district or ward type of election for city council like they have in Overland Park, Shawnee, all the larger cities that are around us. So I think that's the direction that we're headed. And with the rate that Gardner's been growing, I think we need to be headed there very soon.
Don Kirtley, more thoughts from you about potentially moving from a at-large city council to a by ward. Again, some of it might be out of individuals or the city's control, but your thoughts on this?
I agree with Kelly that the more we grow, I think the more, I don't think I meant to say more, but just we need, I guess, more representation and with the different districts as opposed to at-large.
Steve Shute, this question to you as well. So at-large currently, potentially moving to a ward system. What are your thoughts?
So we started working on the process of getting us to city of the first class back when I was mayor in 2020. We looked at the applicable ordinances. We've already staged all of them. We already have them written and ready to go. According to the most recent population estimates, we're at 27,000 residents in Gardner, which means we're over the 25,000 threshold. We are expecting that the state is going to require us to go to first-class city within the next 2 years. And so we will have that done, and when that happens, we will probably be broken up into 4 wards with 1 council member representing each ward, north, south, east, and west, and an additional at-large council member, which would be 5 total council members, and then the mayor obviously is an at-large position. So we're already working on that. That's already in the books or ready to go as soon as we get the go-ahead. It is going to require significant ordinance changes because we have home ruled a lot out of a lot of state and county ordinances. So we're going to have to make sure that we take care of all that, and I think we've already started that process.
John Snyder, thoughts on changing to a district or a ward election method for the city council?
I think transition is imminent for the leadership of Gardner, and the transition is imminent really in Gardner for transitioning from a small town to a large town. 12,000 residents when I came here in 2008, and roughly 27,000 now. And 1,000 each year. So I think transition is imminent.
And Mark Baldwin, wrap this up with your thoughts on changing to a district or ward-based election method for the city council.
As stated, we're going to have to. We don't have a choice in this matter. There are pros and cons to doing that, obviously, though. I'm a big fan of close government, right? So, local government should have more control than county, than state, and so on. One of the drawbacks, though, to going to the ward system, and the reason that I'm not eager to go to it immediately, is that once we do, now instead of everybody on council trying to look at what's best for the city as a whole, you're going to have this ward beholden to these particular people fighting for something, and the other, let's say, 4 saying, that's not in my ward, I don't care, or vice versa. So I'm not looking forward to breaking up the city and more of an infighting potential. I feel like we work well as a collective group, and we have a small town feel even though we're growing, so I would like to hold on to that as long as possible, but it is inevitable.
A couple of questions here from the audience I really want to get to. I know it's 8 o'clock. We did go over on the school board form, so I do appreciate you staying a little bit after 8, but I do want to ask these 2 questions at least before we get out of here. So this comes from the audience. Many Gardner residents appreciate the small town feel of Gardner. What would you like to see happen to Gardner in the downtown retail area to establish Gardner as a city with an attractive small town feel and not the current tired downtown look? This is this person's framing of the question. So addressing downtown retail and maybe making that spiffier. Don Kirtley.
I would like to see maybe picking back up the destination downtown, see where that fell off, and then, try and tackle that. And to just listen to the business owners, current business owners, and because, they're going to be the ones that hear from customers what the issues are with getting to their business or whatever, so.
Steve Shute, the questioner, wants an attractive downtown with a small town feel. How do we get there?
Well, 10 years ago, our downtown was really in bad shape. I think that we've made some significant improvements. Folks like Transport Brewery, folks like Ash and Anvil, one of the finest cigar bars in the entire Kansas City metro area, is actually in our town. You wouldn't think that because we're just little old Gardner, but we actually have some really, really amazing shops and stores and destinations happening in our downtown area. Can it be better? Absolutely. We have a destination downtown plan. It hasn't fallen off. What's happened is that we need to find the funding for it. We're looking for developers to partner with us to be able to build that placemaking that we had talked about before in that plan. And that's going to probably start with a farmer's market, which will be at the back side of the city hall area. We're going to look to use some of our tourism dollars to be able to build that particular amenity and give that to our residents. But we're doing place finding. We've got clocks now that are on our sidewalks. We really do, though, need to partner with our local merchants in downtown to make sure that they are also in the picture as well.
And John Snyder, what do you want to see happen in downtown? Again, the questioner wanting an attractive small town feel to it. What do you want to see happen in downtown?
Destination downtown Gardner, right? We more restaurants, more boutiques, similar things that we see in other cities that have the older part of the city. And I think Gardner could do that. And I think we just have to be more aggressive. We don't have to really sell it because I think it sells itself. With the growth and the potential income that merchants can earn through the growth of Gardner, I think it's a no-brainer. And I think it's important to Gardner that we can keep people from driving to other cities to spend their dollars. And if we can dress up the city and we can get more, maybe people will come to our city and spend their dollars, right? So that'll transfer into revenue. I think it's a great concept, and I think we need to work that concept very hard.
Back on the other end of the table, Mark Baldwin, again, the question, what would you like to see happen to Gardner in the downtown retail area?
So we passed the Destination Downtown Plan in 2018. The biggest issue with it is, yes, a partner developer. Otherwise, it's just the government spending a bunch of money to put on a facade, but ultimately the businesses have to be a partner with us. But to help them, because the costs are so high, is we helped create or facilitated downtown having a historic district now that is designated. So that helps them access tax credits. We work with the Chamber of Commerce to help assuade what the situations are that we could help that are small, like fixing a leaky sewer that would run down the alley in one area. We have acquired some property on the western side of the City Hall block that will be used in that plan. So we're working towards it. It's just slower going than maybe you'd like to see for some. But we're trying to do it without saying, hey, you really want this? Here's 4 more mills to do it.
Kelly Johnson, the final person to answer this question. Again, the questioner from the audience asked, what would you like to see happen to Gardner in the downtown retail area?
There's a whole lot that I'd like to see with Destination Downtown, but where I'd like to start is with the pavilion that Steve alluded to for the farmers market. I think that could be a great place to start because it's not a super high expensive thing to do. Yes, absolutely, it's going to cost money, but it's not going to be as much as, say, refinishing all the front of all the buildings that are down there. So if we build that pavilion, we have more space for vendors at the farmers market. That's money coming in. That space we can use throughout the week for concerts, for Gardner events, for people to rent. There again, that's funds coming in. I would love to see something even as simple as partnering with an energy company to put in some EV charging stations, maybe behind City Council. EV charging companies have revenue sharing where they keep some of the money goes back to the city for those. We're going to see more of those vehicles needed. We are not that far off of I-35 that it would still be convenient, and once they're there and parking, they've got to sit there for 45 minutes, so they can do shopping, they can do eating. That's money they can spend in Gardner while they're doing it.
Another question from the audience, Steve Shute, that order falls to you to start this one off. What role should the city play in keeping young people safe and engaged outside of school hours? Is there any role for the city to support programs that directly impact student safety and community well-being?
Well, I think our park system is a crown jewel of the area. We've actually done some renovations to several parks in our system, specifically Veterans Park. We've got basketball courts out there, pavilions. We also have an adaptive play area for the younger kids as well. But you're saying there's a gap there that needs to be addressed, and one that we've been talking about for years. And well, what do we do with the teenagers, the ones that are between the ages of 13 and 19? Where do they go? And that's a problem around Johnson County. It's not just a Gardner thing. It's a Johnson County issue. So there's been ideas floated about a skate park, about bowling alleys and things like that. Again, I don't believe that government in and of itself should be responsible for bringing in like a bowling alley, for example. What we can do is we can work with developers who might want to bring that kind of an offering to the community. I like to think of our economic development strategy as really more of the farmer tilling the field and getting it ready for planting, but you're not going to be planting the crops. You're going to be letting somebody else plant the crops, and you'll get a portion of that reward back in terms of tax revenue.
John Snyder, what role should the city play in keeping young people safe and engaged outside of school hours? Is there any way that the city can support programs that directly impact student safety and community well-being?
I believe they play a big role. And I also believe that's one of the city's downfalls. I came from a small town in Ohio with 7,000 residents, and we had a theater, a bowling alley, an arcade. I hate to say it, I'm a child of the 80s. Those were new back then. But there are things like that we can do. The city might not be able to do it. I know Latha has a city center for the youth, and that might not be the answer, but getting a partnership and being aggressive in finding people who want to partner with Gardner, something like a YMCA or something like that to keep our youth busy. I think we are really lacking in recreation opportunities for the youth in Gardner.
Back to this end of the table, Mark Baldwin, what role should the city play in keeping young people safe and engaged outside of school hours? Any programs that the city could either support or partner with that directly impact student safety and well-being?
So we have a great Parks and Rec system and programs, but that doesn't cover everything. We did revamp Veterans Park in 2021. I was campaigning. Someone brought it up to me, and I ran with the idea of an inclusive playground, so that's why we have that there. The biggest thing is the city shouldn't be bringing in, if you will, like a bowling alley. We don't bring in business. Now, we have partnered with a company that is going to connect us with those companies that feel like our demographics are appropriate. So it's not like throw it on a billboard and it's one way. It's that they're looking for us, we're looking for them. Those type of things we're open to. The biggest thing is that you don't want us to put in a community center, at least not now, because if you did something like that, then you have to spend $30 million, and you're going to subsidize it with your tax rates in mills, because O&M comes out of the general fund, all the while spending $1,000 a year as a family to attend anyway. So basically, if you want something in town, a business needs to bring it, and if government is open to having it there, which we are, then it'll happen.
Kelly Johnson, any role that the city should play in making sure that young people are safe and engaged outside of school hours? Any programs or things that the city could directly impact in that way?
I think probably what the city can do most easily or most effectively is to support the businesses in Gardner as much as we can. One thing I love is, like tonight we went to Blazers and picked up dinner, going to Ground House, going to these places, the pool in the summertime, seeing that it's all staffed by high school students. Those students are learning responsibility, they're becoming aware of how the world works, how budgeting works. All of these are good things. And I think as we bring more businesses, or as more businesses come to town, as we communicate and support with the businesses we have, they'll be able to prosper more, hire some more high school students, which will help. I do think our Parks and Rec program is really good. Not every student's an athlete who's going to be involved in sports, but there are things like that. I think Gardner has done well with what we have, but a lot of it is going to rely on businesses either coming to town to bring activities or coming to town and hiring those students.
And wrapping up this question, Dawn Kirtley, what role should the city play in keeping young people safe and engaged outside of school? Any programs that the city could support to directly impact student safety and well-being?
I think just partnering with like Edgerton or Olathe, they might have Edgerton has a community center. I would say like use the resources that are already there. The money's not there as far as a community center, then we can, like there's Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or there's the YMCA that's not too far from us. So I think just building relationships and partnering with other cities.
Well, we've been going nearly an hour, so let's go to what amounts to a closing statement. I'll ask each of you the same thing. The order falls to John Snyder to begin this one, so this will be the last thing. Consider this, again, a kind of closing statement. What qualifies you for this job? Why should voters vote for you? Again, knowing that two people on this stage will win seats on the school board. The city council, John Snyder, what qualifies you, and why should voters vote for you?
I have nearly a 40-year work record, and I've been successful in the military, the civilian, and the federal sectors. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration and a master's degree in business and organizational security management. I am prepared to dedicate my entire time to working to benefit the citizens of Gardner. I love the Gardner community, and I've been serving my whole life, and I'm ready to serve the community. And I humbly ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Mark Baldwin, the same question to you. What qualifies you for this job, and why should voters vote for you?
So I'm a learner and researcher. I graduated college with a BS in computer engineering and a BS in electronics engineering in 3 years. I was valedictorian of both. I'm a software engineer for Garmin in the aviation department, and while I develop projects, I'm on standards committees. I maintain over 100 projects. I literally solve problems every day. I've been leading the city for 8 years. I have the aptitude and drive to look through the material and make difficult choices. The point of telling you that education is that I can take something with the data and look through it and do something with it. I never assume I'm the smartest person in the room, but I can guarantee I won't be the dumbest because I can do the research. And I make logical decisions, and I'm willing to back them up with facts, not rhetoric. So I might come across as austere in a meeting, but I'm willing to sit down and chat with anybody regarding a concern they have, and whether or not we agree or not, you'll come away with at least a clear, logical reasoning from my position and where I came from on it.
And Kelly Johnson, what qualifies you for this job? Why should voters vote for you?
Sure. I'm a problem solver, and I'm a get-it-done type of person, which is, I think, what we need on city council. That's not to say that nobody's tried to solve problems before. I think the city council has done well. I just also think that it's time that we have some fresh ideas and some new perspectives. I think we need to be very open to the changing demographics of the area. And I love to have conversations with people. I will advocate for everybody in Gardner, regardless of their background, where they're from, what they do for a living, what they don't do. I want to talk to everybody and be able to advocate for them. My experience as a paralegal has provided me with a great understanding of fiduciary duty. That's absolutely necessary, I think, to serve on city council. I'm committed to acting in a manner that's prudent and responsible for Gardner and its residents and the businesses here. I promise I will always put the interests of Gardner's residents above my own. And I'll follow the law and ensure that city actions comply with statutes, ordinances, and any grant conditions that may be there.
Don Kirtley, your final statement. What qualifies you for the job? Why should voters vote for you?
I just want to reiterate to citizens that the government works for us, for them, and in order for that to happen, for one, we have to vote. So use your voice at the ballot box. Local government is where citizens can make the most impact. I would bring a fresh perspective to the council, one deeply rooted in community. I understand the values and rewards of being susceptible and willing to collaborate. It's about making sure everyone feels seen and heard. Through these tactics, I believe the council and its community members can make a lasting impact. I want to establish a common sense, thoughtful process to achieve this. We all witnessed the power of this community when the Aspen Place residents were displaced from their homes. Gardner saw the need and Gardner got it done. And I also want to emphasize transparency regarding all things city related.
You can finish the thought, of course.
My experience with budgets and also working with the PTO and Gardner Pride have really helped me be more accessible.
And Steve Shute, it falls to you to wrap us up. So what qualifies you for the job, and why should voters vote for you?
Well, I think 30 years of systems professional experience, as well as BS in computer engineering and business management go a long way. But also there's something to be said about experience. A lot of times when you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean, you don't want to be changing your ship. We are in the middle of a significant transition of going from a smaller town to a larger city that has a profound impact on the entire region. With the advent of the EV plant, Panasonic, as well as other associated businesses, you're going to need people who have been in that room, who understand what's going on and how to negotiate with folks that want to bring large manufacturing concerns to this area. There are manufacturing opportunities coming down the pike right now that we know about. We can't say anything about them because they're in progress, but they want continuity. Businesses want continuity. They want certainty. They want to know that they're dealing with the same people they're going to be dealing with 2 years from now. And from that perspective, I think we have great people who are currently in those seats. I understand change is sometimes good, but sometimes change for change's sake isn't. So if you would please support me. My name is Steve Shute. Again, I'm asking for your vote, steveshute.com. Thank you.
Give these candidates a round of applause for staying a little bit late and sharing their views and priorities. Thank you. I know we went a little bit past 8, so I do appreciate your patience with the previous form, and thank you for sticking around and sharing. Again, go to the polls, vote. The election is on November 4th. Early voting starts on October 25th. All that information you can find at jocoelection.org. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.